Chapter 6 begins on page 44. And look on page 44, there's some pictures of some petri dishes. And at the bottom of page 44, you have kingdom Archaea, kingdom Bacteria, kingdom Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. And you can see that kingdom Archaea or Archaea and kingdom Bacteria are larger than the rest, so you know that chapter 6 is all about kingdom Archaea and kingdom Bacteria. On page 47, you can see that chapter 6 is entitled The Simplest Cells. Let's read a quote from Robert Boyle. And when, with excellent microscopes, I discern in otherwise invisible objects the imitable subtlety of nature's curious workmanship, I find myself oftentimes reduced to exclaim with the psalmist, "How manifold are thy works, O Lord! In wisdom hast thou made them all." That's a quote from Robert Boyle. Turn your book to page 46, and as always, we always start our chapter by looking at the major headings. At the top of page 46 in black, it says The Simplest Cells. Underneath that in green, The Necessities of Life. On page 47 at the top, there's a heading that says Viruses. Middle of the page 47, it says Kingdoms, Archaea, and Bacteria. Turn your book to page 48 and 49. There are no major headings there, but there are some figures that you're going to have to look at closely. Turn your book to page 50, and again, there are no major headings, but you will learn about different types of bacteria and how they are named, and you're going to read about Louis Pasteur. Turn your book to page 52, and there is a heading in green at the top called Beneficial Bacteria. And that's it for the chapter. So let's go back to page 46 and begin reading there. Page 46, The Simplest Cells, The Necessities of Life. What are the necessary parts of an automobile? Its radio? No, we could get rid of the radio. We could eliminate many parts of a car and it would still work. Take out the air conditioner, the window, the spare tire, even the seats, and the car can still operate. What are the necessities required for the car to still work? A car must have gas in the tank, a source of energy. It must have an engine, a way to use the energy. It must have a transmission and wheels, a way to turn the energy into something useful. The car must have an exhaust to eliminate waste products. But all these parts won't work without a key to turn on the car and make it start. The car without a key does not work. But of course, a key by itself is not going to work either. Compare the parts of a car to the organelles and parts of a cell. The gas in the tank would be the food molecules in a food vacuole. The engine might be the mitochondrion, where the cell combines oxygen with glucose to make ATP molecules. The transmission and wheels would be the endoplasmic reticulum and the ribosomes, where the energy in the ATP molecules is put to use making proteins. The exhaust system would be vacuoles and the cell membrane, which eliminate carbon dioxide and other wastes. The key is somewhat like the DNA, which forms the chromosomes in the nucleus. This deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, turns on the cell and even tells the cell what to do. Is the car alive then, just like a cell? No, the car can do more than a car. The cell can do more than a car. A cell can grow. A cell can repair itself, which is part of the life function we call synthesis. A cell can reproduce more cells like itself, another of the life functions. A fourth life function cells can do, and cars can't, is irritability. Cells react to changes in the environment. Turn to page 47 up at the top, Viruses. Viruses are the smallest living things, but why the quotation marks? Living is in quotes because viruses are really on the border between living and non-living. We will classify viruses as a special group of almost living organisms. A virus is like the key in our comparison to a cell to a car. A virus by itself cannot do anything. A virus in the right kind of cell can turn on the cell and make the cell produce more viruses. The virus is not able to transport materials, to move, to take in food, or to use the food to release energy, or excrete wastes in order to grow. Of the 8 life functions that you learned about in Chapter 1, the only one that a virus can perform is reproduction. But a virus can't even do that without the aid of a host cell. A virus is a piece of DNA, or RNA, which is ribonucleic acid, in a protein wrapper. The DNA is a set of instructions which control a cell's metabolism. Viruses that take over bacterial cells are called bacteriophages, or literally bacteria eaters. See figure 6.2, which is at the top of page 47. We will study the effects of viruses on the human body when we study diseases. That's towards the end of the book. Now, towards the middle of page 47 is kingdoms, archaea, and bacteria. The simplest living things have no nuclear membrane and no organelles. All organisms with no nuclear membrane and no organelles are grouped into either kingdom archaea or kingdom bacteria. Unlike viruses, archaeans and bacteria carry out 7 or 8 of the life functions and may be called the simplest living things. Organisms with no nuclear membrane and no organelles are called prokaryotes. Organisms that do have a nuclear membrane and organelles are called eukaryotes. Archaeans and bacteria are prokaryotes. Average atom, the tiny amoeba, and the 275-foot high giant sequoia tree are all eukaryotes. Every organism on Earth is either a prokaryote or a eukaryote. Turn your book to page 48, please, and let's read up at the top. Most of the organisms in kingdom archaea live in extreme conditions. For instance, some archaeans live in extremely saline water, such as the Dead Sea and the Great Salt Lake. Other archaeans thrive near deep sea hypothermal vents, where the temperature is well above the boiling point. Thankfully, none of the archaeans cause diseases. Kingdom bacteria contain a large variety of prokaryotes. Some types of bacterium have a flagellum, or even many flagella for movement. At one time, bacteria were considered to be part of the plant kingdom, because most have a cell wall. Many bacteria get their food from dead organisms. This is called saprophytism, or by infecting living organisms, called parasitism. Parasitic bacteria are the bacteria which cause diseases. Some bacteria get their energy by eating minerals. A few bacteria can produce their own food by using sunlight and a purple chemical similar to chlorophyll. Blue-green algae are a type of bacteria that gets its energy through photosynthesis. The chlorophyll in blue-green algae is not in chloroplasts, but is simply floating in the cytoplasm. Blue-green algae and other bacteria are unicellular, that means one cell. But the single cells sometimes stick together in clumps or filaments, and look at the picture there of how they're all clumped together. At the bottom of page 48, the most outstanding characteristic of a bacterium is its ability to reproduce. After growing to a maximum size, the single parent cell divides into 2 daughter cells. The process of splitting into two, called binary fission, may occur every 30 minutes under ideal conditions. That would result in over 1 million bacteria in just 10 hours from a single parent cell. This mass of bacteria, called a colony, can be seen without a microscope. Each type of bacteria forms a colony with a specific color and shape, which helps in identification. Page 49 in the middle. Bacterial colonies cannot grow forever because the necessities for life are used up as more bacteria are produced. Remember the necessities of life? A source of energy, a way to use the energy to make new chemicals, and a way to get rid of waste products? As a bacterial colony grows larger and larger, the source of energy is used up, or the waste products build up to the point where the bacteria can no longer grow and undergo binary fission. Turn to page 50, please. Bacteria of any of these three basic shapes must have the right conditions for them to perform their life functions. 5 conditions that affect bacterial growth are: number 1, food as a source of energy. Number 2, temperature, which allows the bacterial cell to carry out chemical reactions using the energy from the food. Very high temperatures kill bacteria, but some bacterial spores may survive even boiling water. The cold temperatures of a refrigerator slow down bacterial growth, but they don't kill the microbes. Number 3, moisture is needed for bacteria to grow. Drying out their food source slows the growth of bacteria. Too much salt or sugar in the bacteria's environment dries out the bacteria by osmosis. Number 4, light energy can kill some bacteria. Most bacteria grow better in darkness. Number 5 is oxygen. Oxygen is necessary for the oxidation of food. Oxidation is the process which releases energy in food. Aerobic bacteria get their oxygen from the air. However, the tetanus bacterium and some others are actually killed by oxygen gas in the air. These anaerobic bacteria get their oxygen from chemicals with oxygen atoms inside them. Anaerobic bacteria must survive as spores until they end up where there is no free oxygen gas, such as in a deep wound. Page 51 at the top. Now, you should understand better why most foods must be kept refrigerated after opening. Foods are kept from being decayed by bacteria through a manipulation of the bacteria's environment. Before the invention of refrigerators, many foods had to be salted, and some were sugared to preserve them. Many foods, such as breakfast cereals, are dried. Canned foods are cooked first at high temperatures and then sealed up so that no oxygen is present. Canned foods may be good for many years. Frozen foods are kept at low temperatures, but will eventually spoil. Heating milk at the dairy processing plant is a way to kill many of the bacteria in milk. This process, called pasteurization, is named after Louis Pasteur, a French, top of page 52, a French chemist. Pasteur learned many of the things about bacteria that we use today to preserve food and even save lives from the attacks of bacteria. So let's read quickly. Go back to page 51. Let's read about Louis Pasteur, okay? Louis Pasteur. When Louis Pasteur was born in 1822, scientists had seen bacteria under the microscope, but they did not know that these tiny creatures could cause terrible diseases such as anthrax, typhoid, and cholera. Since no one knew the cause of these diseases, doctors would often make their patients worse, unintentionally of course, by going from patient to patient without washing their hands. Would you be surprised to learn that it was not a famous doctor, but a simple chemist who first discovered the role of germs in causing diseases? Louis Pasteur, a young French chemist, discovered that harmful bacteria could cause diseases when he was studying an insect disease that was killing off the silkworms in France, even though he had not been trained as a biologist or a doctor. Pasteur quickly realized how important his discovery was. In his own family, 3 of his 5 children had died from typhoid fever, a bacterial disease that today is easily prevented by immunizations. Pasteur spent the rest of his life identifying disease-causing bacteria and devising vaccines to prevent those diseases. For instance, he discovered that the anthrax bacteria could be weakened by heat. Once a person is inoculated with the weakened anthrax, they become immune to the full-strength anthrax. Pasteur received many honors during his lifetime, but his greatest reward was the knowledge of how many lives he had saved. One of his heroes was Saint Vincent de Paul, the French priest who did so much to help the poor. Pasteur died at the age of 73, holding a crucifix in one hand and his wife's hand in the other. Turn to page 52. Beneficial bacteria. You may think that bacteria are the same as germs. This would be incorrect. True, some bacteria are germs which cause human, animal, or plant diseases, but life on Earth would not continue without bacteria. You recall the necessities of life, energy, ways to use it to rearrange chemicals, and a way to excrete wastes. Many millions of trillions of organisms have lived on Earth. Their bodies contain the same oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen atoms that you need in your body. If the dinosaurs and the forests of long ago never decomposed, then the chemicals needed for life today would be all used up. In chapter 26, you will learn that the Earth's materials are used in cycles. The elements needed for life to go in circles from existing in a biotic state in living creatures to existing in an abiotic state in non-living materials and back again. Life is only possible because bacteria decompose dead organisms and their products. The humus in topsoil is the result of this decay. Humus contains minerals and nitrates needed by plants. This is also the basic idea of a sewage treatment plant, where bacteria are cultured to decompose raw sewage. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria are a special group of bacteria that live in the nodules of legumes, such as clover and peas. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria take nitrogen gas from the air and fix it into nitrates. This helps the plants, which require nitrates to live. In return, the bacteria get their food, glucose, from the plants. Such a close relationship of 2 organisms in which both live very close together and both benefit is called mutualism. Bacteria are needed to provide many useful products, including pickles, vinegar, sauerkraut, cheeses, tanned leather, and linen. They are used to change chopped corn into silage and to produce many kinds of chemicals out of molasses and sawdust. One of the newest uses of bacteria is in genetic engineering. In this process, a piece of DNA from another organism is put into a bacterial cell. This causes the bacterial cell to produce a chemical that is usually made by the other organism. In the case of diabetes, the object of genetic engineering is to produce bacteria that make human insulin, which can be injected into the diabetic whose body isn't able to make its own insulin. In the middle of page 53, let's see, were there a couple of figures there? I'll let you look at those and read those on your own. And before you get done with this chapter, I want you to look at all of the figures. And then if you look on the right-hand margin on 53, you can see that you can fill out worksheets. If you look at figures 6.1 through 6.7, or wait a second, you can do the worksheets 6.1 through 6.7 due to the information that you find on this page. So make sure to always look in those margins, okay? And look at all of the figures. And that's it. Bye-bye.